Yeah, and I have to say the actual word pain is probably one that I often try to not even have in my mind, and I'll
Mm,
say it as a mum who's had children and I've gone through childbirth, right?
mm,
That in itself is it's a mindset. It's a mindset, and what I've learned, and I'll just share my
mm.
story.
Please,
And
please,
I will
please.
talk about childbirth in a sense because it's about when people feel that they're um, you're wanting to get out of a certain um, situation which is causing discomfort or a challenge or whichever,
Mm,
often people focus too much on that and are unable to see actually what's outside of it.
cool.
So and I will talk about sort of and I say I relate pain to when I say labor is that
Mm,
I've always looked at it and said it's a sensation, right?
mm,
The
mm,
sensation, and which is like a challenge. All right, it's a
mm,
challenge. If I don't look at it as pain, it doesn't need to be. It's not.
sure.
It's just part of that process, and it's the same with
Mm,
business, right? If
mm,
I go,
mm,
it. There's a situation here which is actually, I'm not happy with. I really want to change,
mm,
um, and I realize that if it becomes something that I get fixated on, I'm
mm,
not able
mm,
to move forward. That
mm,
actually hinders my motivation, um,
mm,
and so to be able to, and I'd like to get your input on how do
mm,
we when often we can only focus on the things that are stopping us from moving forward. We're sort of complaining about things. So,
mm,
when we talk about pain, I think it's a challenge, it's a it's an issue, it's we're complaining. How do we
mm.
get out of that and then realize that it's not just about running away or getting away from the pain, to be able to say, pain, challenge, problem, let's tuck it here and move away from that and focus
Sure. So,
forward.
sure. So the first thing when I talk about pain, I'm not saying harbour the pain and keep it going. I'm saying
Mm,
it's like putting a key in a car and starting it. I'm saying
mm,
use the pain to get started, right?
yeah.
But you don't want to harbour that pain and keep moving
Yes.
forward because that puts you under all sorts of stress and tension. Okay, but it's about
Correct.
using it to get you up out of the chair. Another example is you would have heard of the saying when people hit rock bottom, right? So whether it be with
Mm,
money or overweight or whatever, they get into health. So the person has a heart attack, so they hit rock bottom, they have a heart attack, they decide at that point that they then want to go and change. Or they
yeah.
have no money and they decide at that point they then want to go and do something about it. And what I'm suggesting through the technique of projection is don't
Mm,
wait until you have a heart attack or don't wait
yeah.
till you have no money because when you do that sort of change, you're changing in an enormously painful situation. Why
Mm,
not just create it in your mind, right,
yes.
and change that away as opposed to waiting for a catastrophic event to happen. The other thing
Yeah.
that I'd say is then don't harbour like I said, don't harbour the pain. Constantly look towards something. So you talked about working away from something, working away from the pain. What I'm saying is use the pain to get started. That's put the key in the ignition. Now you've got your goal because remember if we do it in sequentially, we've got our why,
Mm-hmm,
we've
mm-hmm,
got our
mm-hmm,
goal,
mm-hmm.
we've worked out how we got our time to be able to do this. Now we're saying let's get going, and now the focus
Yeah.
is on what I want, what I'm moving towards, and so it's always out the front window of the car, and I'm moving
Yeah.
towards that. And each day that I take another step, doesn't matter if it's this big or this big, I'm moving in that direction. And so when you come across the choice to do things you want to ask yourself, is this next thing that I'm doing going to take me closer to or further away? So you're confronted with a number of different scenarios throughout your day, and there'll be
Mm,
temptations and distractions and all sorts of things that come across into your view, and you have to
mm.
ask yourself, this next 2 hour binge TV watching, or this next social media watching, unless it's you and I, Cheryl. But
Unless
other
it's
than
this,
that,
yeah.
yeah. But that next bit of procrastinating, is that going to
Yes.
take me closer to my goal or further away? And the answer is it's going to
Mm,
take you further away. Now, there's nothing
mm,
wrong with watching television. I mean, I don't watch TV per se. I do watch the occasional movie or educational piece, but I don't watch television. There's nothing
mm,
wrong with it, but do it as a reward. So what
mm.
happens is people will watch the TV first, so that take their reward first, and then by the time it comes to do the activity, it's like, oh, I'm
They're too
exhausted.
tired.
Oh,
Yeah.
buggered.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't. Why don't you flip it around? Why don't you do the activity first and then give yourself a reward? We all
Yes.
love positive reinforcement. We all love to get a good old pat on the back. Give yourself a pat on the back. So, you know what? I am going to watch my favorite 2-hour Netflix movie or whatever it is. But before I get there, I've got this activity that I need to do. And when I do this activity, and it might be one activity, it might be for 7 days in a row, it might be for 2 weeks, whatever. I mean, have some fun with this, right? But give
Yeah.
yourself a
Yeah.
reward. Now, also the reward needs to be proportionate to the activity. So when I say reward, I'm not saying go on a trip to the Bahamas. I'm saying
Yeah.
maybe
Why
you do
not?
that maybe you do that when you complete a deal that delivers you 50 or 100K, then by all means take your family on an overseas holiday. But when you're doing smaller tasks and you're doing them for maybe 7, you might say, you know what, for this week, I'm going to do 2 hours on my property every day. That's 14 hours for the week, or you might say it's 7 hours, whatever it is, wherever you're at. Set yourself a goal, give yourself a reward. When I do that, when I do my 7 hours, 7 1 hours over the next week, my reward is, and it could be go to your favorite coffee shop, or go to your favorite restaurant, or allow yourself an hour to read a book, or walk the dog, or go to the beach, or whatever. Here's the thing. A lot of us are probably doing those things anyway, but you want to just flip it around, and how you frame that up is to say, I do this task, then I get to go. And here's the kicker. If you don't do the task, you don't get to go, and that's called discipline. And so you need to be able to adopt those practices so that your reward comes after the effort.
Yeah, and that word discipline that's a really critical one, because we often think that discipline is a form of punishment when it's not necessarily. It really is a tool to be able to focus and concentrate on the task at hand.
Well, the most successful people are those that are self-disciplined. They are focused, they are driven, they are purpose-driven, they know what they want, and they go after it. And there's an enormous distractions and people wanting them to come here, and the mind saying you're not good enough, and all these types of things, but they're disciplined. And they're focused, and they know what they want to get, and they're going to get it. And nothing's going to knock them off. Yeah, there's going to be obstacles. Yeah, there's going to be challenges. Don't ever think there's not going to be challenges, because there's going to be an enormous number of challenges. And particularly in the game that we all play of property and property development, there is an enormous number of challenges.
Yeah.
Right? But you need to back yourself to be able to constantly come up with solutions to those challenges. Right? You need to be resourceful. And that is, rather than focus on the challenge, rather than focus on the problem, focus on, how do I solve this? What have I got to do to keep moving forward? Because there's this obstacle here, and I firmly believe that the obstacle is there to test you. The obstacle is there. I'm going to get a bit deep here, but the obstacle is there because the universe is saying, how serious are you? How fair income are you? How badly do you want this? Because if it was easy, everybody would do this. It's not easy. Creating wealth, whether it be through property, through other means, through small business, etc. It's not easy, and guess what? It's not designed to be easy. It's designed to weed out those that are pretenders, and to say, you know what? If you're committed to this and you're determined at doing this, and you have a clear vision, and you work on your goal every single day, and even if it's a small bit every single day, you work towards it, then you will be successful.
Yeah.
You will be successful. You just need to be patient enough and persistent enough, but you will be successful. And you have to believe that. You have to believe that that's the case. And so that's why there's those obstacles. And again, they're little tests. So it's like, well, I think I described it a few weeks ago around, I talk about my gates. It's just another gate. I look at it, it's just another gate. The gate can open, but I've just got to get through this next thing in front of me. And it could be that I have a fear of talking to an agent. It could be that I have a problem with counsel. It could be that I've got an issue with the contractor. It could be whatever it is. It could be that I'm struggling to negotiate with a vendor or with an agent, whatever it might be. It's another gate. But here's the thing. You open that gate, and guess what's in front of you? Another gate, and another gate, and another one, and another one. But when you stick at it persistently and consistently, all of a sudden, you get to the place where you have been working towards.
Yeah. And what are good ways for us to be able to keep that motivation up? Because like you said, we're all going to be, we've all been in that situation if we've been in property development or investment where we've, gone through hundreds of sites. I remember when I finally kept note of how many sites I've gone through, it was, I think, about 300 in a year. once.
Mm, mm.
Maybe it was just
So,
me, but yeah,
uh,
what do we that we can implement now for the the everyday person to keep
sure. So,
going even though
yeah.
the going gets tough?
So the going is going to get tough. So the first thing is accept it's going to get tough and accept that your journey is going to be like that. What you can do is play games with yourself. For example, let's say that the average property deal is going to net you $100,000.
Mm,
And let's say that in order to get there, you need to put in 100 offers.
yeah.
So then when you put an offer in, you say to yourself, well, I just made $1,000. And I put
Mm,
another offer in, and I just made $1,000. I put another
mm,
offer in. Now you haven't physically made $1,000. You haven't got it in your back pocket, but you're playing the game that says, "Well, I'm now just one step closer to where I need to get to." So that's one
numbers
way to
game.
do it.
Hmm.
It's a numbers
Hmm.
game. The other is to do something on your goal regularly, like daily. Review
Mm,
your goal daily. Get an accountability partner. So it could be a friend or family, or it could be a coach. Now, I'm going to recommend that you don't do someone who isn't going to be truthful to you.
mm,
So that is, if you're just going to get friend or family who are going to want to keep you safe and protect you, then I'm going to say to you that that's wrong. Find someone who's going to be truthful to you, who's going to tell you as they see it, but they're going to do it from a place of good intent to help you move forward. Now, the other alternative, as I said, is you can pay for someone like me, but you don't have to pay for someone like me, right? You can find someone within your circle who can help you, but do not go to someone who's who's not going to be honest with you.
yeah.
I touched on it before. Reward yourself. Reward yourself. Constantly just give yourself little rewards. When we do stuff, we get a reward. We feel pretty cool about it. And even if they're small tasks and small rewards, here's the thing: you want to build momentum up. So you
Mm,
just do something small, have a reward. Something small, have a reward. Something maybe slightly bigger, have a reward. So on and so forth. So you gradually work your way into it. I call it crawl, walk, run. So you crawl, then you walk, then you run. So that's another thing that you can do.
mm, mm. I've just got a few comments here. Richie
Sure,
says
please.
improve 1% a day equals
Perfect.
365% in a year. Awesome.
There
That's a
you go,
huge.
Richie. That's it. And that's what I'm saying. It's about just doing small things on a regular basis and creating, what was the word that I said at the start of this program? The habit or the routine.
Yeah,
Doing
yeah.
something all the time, right? Not just doing it once, then doing it in 2 weeks, and doing it in 2 weeks,
Mm,
all the time doing something small and work up. And like Richie said, 1% a day. That's it. Just one
mm,
small thing is going to take you closer to where you want to get to. Now, in regards to achieving your goal from a timeliness point of view, your effort now will determine how quickly you get there. So you can be like I was, and that is get up at 4 o'clock and work till 6 o'clock and go to my job and then finish my job at 4:30 and do more at the end of my job and then spend my weekends doing this for day in day out, week in week out, month in month out for about 18 months. Or you can do it in a more graduated approach. Either way, in fact, I'll probably encourage people don't necessarily do what I did, but either way, you just adjust your goal. So it's like, okay, well, cool. I don't have that sort of time, but that's okay. But I'm going to get to my goal in 5 years or 2 years or whatever it is, whatever your time frame is. You just adjust the amount of effort. Now that effort has still got to be the right effort. So it's not just about quantity; it's
mm,
also about quality. So it's the
mm.
quality of effort. But go back to Richie's point. Just do something every single day. What's another comment
And
there, Cheryl?
so Tony Anthony, who I know very well, Anthony,
Hmm.
was he at the event on the weekend? Anthony, Anthony Chansamu. Sorry, I can never pronounce your surname. He says, hi, Tony.
Oh,
Jin,
Anthony, Anthony up at the event on the Gold Coast. Yeah, hi mate,
yes,
how are
that's
you?
right. Yeah, he's here. Jin,
Good.
what gets rewarded gets reinforced. Sounds catchy. Yeah,
There you
that's
go. Use that, right? What gets through? I love it, and that's the thing. It's like do something, reward yourself. Do something, reward yourself. Pat yourself on the back. We all feel good about
yes,
it, and keep
yes.
going. But just do small rewards. You don't have to do big things, right? Again, that crawl, walk, run. Just gradually build up to this.
And I think it's also important to be able to sit and reflect on where you've been, you know, where you've come from, what you've achieved, and often we forget that. We're so focused on work, and we're doing the 1% every day. But sometimes that if we're not rewarding or whichever, we get to the halfway mark and you go, oh, I haven't quite got to where I want to be. But I think it's important as well to be able to have times of reflection and self-awareness, to look back and go, wow, actually, I've come a long way, to keep that motivation going.
Absolutely, and I said it before. That's one of
Yeah.
the reasons that's one of the only few reasons that you want to look behind, and that is to see how far you've come. And as you're having your reward, so for example, if your reward is to do a small activity and then go and shout yourself at your favorite coffee shop, as you're sipping on your coffee, reflect and say, you know what, I'm having this coffee. You have to say it out loud. If there's people around, they may think you're a bit weird. Alternatively, you can go for it. I probably would.
Luke would do it. Luke would do it.
He would, but it's about are you having your coffee, or as you're walking your dog, or as you're about to have your favorite meal as a reward? Just remind yourself the reason that you're in that position. Just remind yourself that I'm having this coffee, meal, dog walk, whatever it is, because I did that, whatever that is. So it's a good point you make, Cheryl, about reflecting. Any other questions?
Fong says, yeah, I'm all in, which is fabulous. And that's the thing, I want to be able to, you know, we're going to come out of these sessions and feel pumped up, and I want to be able to have people, I mean, you know, you and I, is to definitely for us to be able to give value to the community and say, what can we take away from this session, and remind ourselves that when the going gets tough, when things get hard, to be able to move forward. But it's also one thing I remember reading from Tony Robbins. It's about also when allow yourself to shift as well. If you're working on something and it consistently doesn't particularly work for whatever reason, you allow yourself to shift, but not look at it as failure. Just sort of go, all right, I can move gears, or maybe there's something that I need to tweak, and keep going on that. You know, what are your thoughts around that? At what point do you reflect and go, maybe I've got to take a little bit of a different path to still get to where I want to be?
So I'll say a couple of things. So the first is, I agree that you need to be open. My only concern with that is that people try something once and say it doesn't work and try something differently. So there's not a right answer, Cheryl, but it's more than one. Right, if that makes sense. And so I know far too many people, and I'll give you an example. People will say to me, oh, Tony, doing direct letters to vendors doesn't work. And I'll say, well, okay, well, how many times have you done it? Well, I did it once. Well, that's the thing. You think about your own purchasing habits, right? We're becoming a whole lot smarter as purchasers now. And in that example, it's as a seller, as a vendor who's got the letter. But you think about on the internet, before you make a purchasing decision, you want to see someone, you want to get exposed to them, you want to watch them on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, before you then finally commit to making a purchasing decision. No different when you're going to a direct vendor, or to a vendor with a direct letter. They're not going to receive one letter and go, hey, who's this Tony dude? Oh yeah, I'm happy to sell my house. No, but you've got to keep going, and you create a system. And every couple of months you send another letter, and perhaps you just start to, you know, create a bit of a story in your letter, whatever it might be. But you're doing this consistently. You're starting to build trust. You're starting to then potentially stand out, because there'll be others within that area who might have sent a letter to the same person, but maybe they sent one and they dropped off because, oh, this doesn't work. But you've been persistent and consistent, and known that if I stick with this long enough, then it's going to be successful. But you're also right that there can come a time when you're constantly doing the same thing, right? And then you go, you know what, this just isn't working. And there may be a time, and you do need to be open, but that time is not after once or twice. That's not enough.
Yeah.
You have to keep going. So it's just a balance there, Cheryl, between I don't want people to go, oh, I did it once and it didn't work.
And I think that's why it's so important, like I said, having an accountability partner, whether it's a coach or whatever, who can see things from the outset and sort of be able to be honest with you and say, no, you really didn't give it much of an effort, and keep going, but also be able to give their honest feedback where they can see that, oh no, maybe you might want to try it this way. We're still working towards the same goal, but You know, maybe if you present something a different way, or draft your letter, maybe I can assist with drafting your letter, things like that. I think it is important to be able to have someone to balance things off.
I
As I said,
agree.
whether that's a coach or
It's critical. Yeah, it's absolutely critical. And
mm,
you know,
mm,
because you want to keep you want to challenge yourself and keep challenging yourself, because again, it
yeah,
comes back to what's your goal. And if your
mm,
goal is to create wealth through property development, then you can't stop at the first hurdle, because that's the
mm,
gate, and that means
mm,
that you're turning away from your goal, which means your goal was never that big enough in the first place.
mm,
So when you are so deeply connected to why you're doing this and your goal,
yeah,
then you're going to come up with resourceful ways to get closer to it.
yeah,
And yes, great, my letter didn't work. Okay, what can I learn from it? Can I change the copy? Can I handwrite versus typed? You know, so many different variables that you can use in that example, that it's going to take you closer to purchasing the property direct from a vendor. That's just one
yeah.
example. I mean, you could apply that same methodology to any part of property development, in fact, any part of your life.
Mm.